Welcome to the Lady Up America podcast. I'm Diane Canada, your host. I am so glad you're here today. Thanks for tuning in. Well, we're just coming off of Super Bowl weekend. We got a lot to talk about around that. I know there's a lot of chatter on social media around it. I promise that this episode is not going to feed anything divisive that's going on in our spirit. I promise. What I want to do today is bring some perspective, bring some godly wisdom to this discussion, hopefully arm you with it, so that when you're having those tough discussions out there with friends and family about it, maybe you have something new and fresh you can bring. But I want to remind you before we get deep into the episode, before we have our news headlines with Steve Gill, that if you would be so kind as to like or subscribe right here below, it really helps. It helps other people discover the podcast, and it also will give you a little notification bell every time I drop a new episode, so that way you won't miss one. Hopefully you want to continue watching, and I'm really grateful to you for doing that. This show is all about trying to get our bearings and get our reorientation after disorienting news headlines, and then be able to go out and have powerful conversations that make cultural and spiritual impact. I believe with all of my heart that we are in the last hours of the last days, not to be doom and gloom in any way. I'm actually excited. I'm so excited about the idea of Jesus coming back for us and us going to heaven. I'm really excited about that. But what I want to do is make sure we take as many people with us as we possibly can when we go. And, you know, the news, politics, elections, all that stuff is important, but it's like it pales in comparison to the importance of where we're going to spend eternity. And so we always want to talk about these news headlines from a biblical and eternal perspective, because that helps us keep our balance, right? And helps us to not get sucked into these emotional traps and emotional rabbit holes and all of that. That's really just there to divide and to distract us from what really, really matters. All right. So let's get into our news headlines, and then we are going to be diving deeper into the discussion in my tea time cafe just after we visit with Steve. All right, I'll be right back.
Taking back this house, taking back this town. Mama, don't back down. Just lay it up, lay it up, lay it up.
All right, ladies, welcome back. We're going to bring our good friend Steve Gill in. He's the founding editor and publisher at TristarDaily.com. He's spent time in the White House. He has been on syndicated radio for many years, does a lot of international TV. I know you know him. We love him. Please welcome Steve Gill. Hey, Steve, how you doing?
Hey, good to be back with you. Thank you.
Good to have you here. Thank you so much. Okay, we're cleaning up after the storms. It's Valentine's week. Tell us some good news. Is there anything good going on in the world?
Yeah, I think that we're seeing, people return to the values that actually did make America great. It's not the illegal aliens. It's not the overspending. It's not the fraud, the waste, the abuse. And we're seeing, while there are some of the Olympic athletes representing our country who are treating us with disdain and disrespecting our country, there are other great stories that are coming out of the Olympics of those that are patriotic, who love our country, who have devoted themselves with the discipline and the effort to bring their talents to the highest level in the world. So I think as we watch, we need to ignore the naysayers, the doomsday promoters and the vile anti-American commentary that we're getting from some who dare to wear the American flag on their uniform but not represent it in their heart. So I think that the Olympics is continued to be good news on several fronts, and we're also seeing, I think, within our country, as we saw with the Kid Rock alternative halftime performance, where he is unabashedly praising Jesus, and millions more watched that than watched what they were performing at the Super Bowl itself.
Wasn't that awesome? I loved, the early part of that show was okay. I can certainly respect, the stories of some of those artists that performed, but at the end, it just got me. I loved when he went back to his God-given name, Robert Ritchie or Bob Ritchie. And then when he did that song, Till You Can't, oh my gosh. Yes. And then the picture of Charlie with his family, better love until you can't. I mean, what a poignant moment. I think that just got all us girls in the feels for sure.
Well, and Bad Bunny with his display, literally tens of millions tuned out at halftime of the Super Bowl because of what was being thrust down our throats. And because he was doing it in Spanish, he's getting a pass from the FCC and other regulators, if he had said those lyrics in English,
Yes.
they would be fined like crazy.
Yes.
And simply saying it in another language does not dismiss what the FCC should be doing, both to the companies that aired it, to the Super Bowl, and to him in particular. Millions of dollars of fines should be imposed because of the language, the foul language, the F-bombs, the derogatory stuff. And you know, we hear so often from the left, oh, the right are misogynistic, the right are this and the right are that. You look what the left puts out at halftime of the Super Bowl on live TV with tens of millions watching in the US and even more around the world, and the disgraceful attitude towards women, the disgraceful use of language, and yet all of the feminists, all the leftists are silent.
Okay, yeah. And I just want to say, like, for any of y'all who don't know what those lyrics were, I mean, there was a reason they didn't have the captions running during that. If you just go look up the lyrics to that playlist from Super Bowl, we actually looked it up this morning, my husband and I, because I saw an article on it. I was mortified. Like, it's worse than Cardi B. And yet all these people are praising the theatrical performance and all this, and completely oblivious to what was being pumped out lyrically. I mean, I had even a lot of my friends who are Christian conservatives. They don't know. They were like, well, I couldn't understand anything he was saying, but I love the theatrics. And it's like, we got to do better than that, America. Like, and Jay-Z, I didn't realize Jay-Z was the producer of the Super Bowl shows. I didn't know that he is paid, what is it, $24 million a year to put together that show. So I'm mortified. And it's not about being a prude, Steve. Like, you know, we all had times in our lives when we were promiscuous and all that. And I mean, but this was just lewd and crude and appalling, these lyrics.
Well, I don't understand those who are embracing the theatrics when you had the faux sex acts taking place, when you had he and all his guys on stage grabbing their crotches. One of my friends said, I think it was actually a halftime ad for Jock Itch Cream or something, because they all seem to have the same problem. But the theatrics of just the gross performance, in addition to the gross lyrics, I think deserve a lot more attention. And
I agree.
Again, when you compare that to what was offered as the alternative, don't be dismayed. America is moving in the right direction where we can, where the courts allow, and where America gets the truth. And the truth of those lyrics should result in major, massive fines against the station that carried it, the Super Bowl itself, the NFL, and certainly Bad Bunny, who deserves his name.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. Are things moving along with Iran, or what do we know about the latest there? I know we're kind of positioning. We've got threats of war over there, but anything there that you can report on for us?
Look, I love Westerns, and all I can say about Iran is it's kind of like in the old Western movies and TV shows. When the Indian drums stopped, that's when it was time to worry. So it's gotten quiet with respect to Iran. So the drums have stopped, and that's where the leadership in Iran should be very concerned about what comes next, particularly when they look at what happened with Maduro in Venezuela. And let's again underline what not only happened where U.S. troops went in, snatched this, abhorrent, drug-dealing, murderous cartel guy right from his own bedroom, and what's happening in Venezuela now. Hundreds of millions of dollars are being returned to the people of Venezuela. Liberty and freedom are being returned to the people of Venezuela. The aftermath of what's happening there now is not getting nearly the attention it deserves, nor the fact that Colombia, next door, the president there is now saying, hey, yeah, we want to work with Trump. We want to move our people into the freedom and the prosperity that we're seeing happen throughout South and Central America as other countries there embrace the populism, the freedom, the capitalism that has prospered throughout the world while socialism and communism have failed. So again, I don't think we're getting enough of the aftermath story of Venezuela. And then you compare that to the silence of what's surrounding Iran. And I think that we will see action there probably, I'd say within the next week or 10 days, that something will move. Either the Ayatollah and the leadership will decide that they are on such thin ice. I know that's kind of a weird term to use when you're talking about the Middle East, but they are on such thin ice that they will take action, or action will be taken against them.
You think there's a chance Israel will go in without us?
No, I think Israel wants to have the continued umbrella of protection and assistance from the U.S. I think they don't. It's a little bit like Ukraine. You don't pick a fight with a gorilla much bigger than you.
Yeah.
And while Israel has the capacity, they don't have the manpower to actually do certainly a boots on the ground with Iran. The biggest problem with Iran, and I think we've talked about this in the past, is there aren't the resources on the ground of the people. When you disarm the people, when you take away their power, both politically as well as physically and with weapons, that's where these theocracies and dictators can dominate the people because there are no weapons to fight back.
Yeah.
So I think the problem in Iran is that there are not the resources. Even if you encourage the people to take action, they're very limited in what they can do. And to some extent, we saw that in Venezuela as well. But in Iran, they're killing tens of thousands of people. And of course, the United Nations is silent. The world is silent. And I don't think that Israel can do it alone. And I think that that at some point we will take action because too many innocent tens of thousands are being murdered by the regime.
The one thing about that just has me heartbroken is I think a lot of those people did take to the streets and did try to rise up because I think they thought help was coming sooner from the United States. And so I understand you can't make knee-jerk decisions. I understand there's a lot of things to way above my pay grade, but it just feels like we left them a little too long for there to be that many that were killed.
I don't want to get too much in the weeds on military strategy, but I think we have developed an over-reliance in our attitude of clean warfare, where somehow we can use airstrikes, we can use drone strikes, and we can accomplish what we need. War is still a brutal, on-the-ground, person-to-person activity.
Yeah.
And when you've got countries that are as huge as Iran, you can't simply hit airstrikes and stop what is being done and implement a change on the ground. So I think, again, we've become accustomed that sometimes we have these very short wars and airstrikes and a couple of Tomahawk missiles end it. That is not how warfare has been for centuries, for generations, for millennia. And unfortunately, I think we have to learn the lessons of the reality of warfare. And it is brutal, it is difficult, and you do not change power within a country until the people have the power to implement those changes. And unfortunately, that often requires a force of arms.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sure there are other things you'd like to touch on. I don't want to keep like a jukebox asking you about certain topics, but I am curious. Can I ask you about one more that's just top of mind? What's going on with Mamdani up there in New York? It seems like he's kind of a hot mess up there. A lot of people are maybe bailing on support for him. Am I reading that right?
Well, the city of New York has slipped from a first-tier city to a second-tier city in terms of being a second world city. And under Mamdani, after about 30 days, he's turning it into a third world city. It looks like the streets of Uganda or third world countries throughout Africa. The trash is not being collected. People are dying on the streets of freezing to death. He's raising taxes with no answer of where the money's actually going to go, other than perhaps into the pockets of he and his cronies. Again, you get what you vote for.
That's
and
right.
If you stay home and don't vote, you let others vote for what you will get. As I was a kid, Mom would often ask us, what do we want for dinner? And then she would serve whatever she wanted to serve. If you do not have the power to influence things, you're going to get broccoli and asparagus every night, whether you want it or not.
That's right.
And the people in New York, the people in Virginia are getting a lot worse than broccoli and asparagus right now. Now, look, I like broccoli and asparagus a lot more now than I did when I was 7. But the people in Virginia and in New York and in Minnesota are seeing the results of letting the left-wing absolute crazies take power. And they may talk moderate when they're running for office, like we saw with Abigail Spanberger in Virginia. Mm-hmm. But when they get in power, they do the exact opposite. We're seeing interviews with Governor Beshear in Kentucky as he's expressing the most vile, disgusting biblical tenets of his faith that, oh yeah, we ought to be doing transgender surgery on children. We ought to be aborting children. There are no moderate Democrats. And we need to remind voters time and time again, moving now to the midterms, there is no such thing as a moderate Democrat.
Amen.
There are lying Democrats who pretend to be moderates, but there is no such thing as a moderate Democrat. 75 to 80% of Americans, including Democrats, want voter ID, and yet the Democratic Party is blocking it. 75 to 80% of Americans, including Democrats, don't want men and women's sports, and yet the Democrats block those things under the guise of moderation. So There are no moderate Democrats. And we need to make sure that these so-called moderate Republicans, who are really Democrats in disguise, are removed from their seats. We've got about 8 or 9 senators in the U.S. Senate right now with an R next to their name who are as evil and as bad as what we get from the left. They are blocking the policies of Trump. They are blocking the policies that Americans overwhelmingly support. And we need to clean house in our House and Senate, in addition to removing these evil, vile Democrats, many of whom are not even from this country, that are serving in our Congress, who are loyal to other countries rather than us. And again, not having the SAFE Act, not having the voting rights that Americans deserve of the same kind of ID that you have to present to get on an airplane or to buy cold medicine or to go to Democrat functions. We should have that as a foundation of our voting process to restore integrity. And it is Republicans who are stopping it.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. That's like a stump speech. That's stump speech worthy right there. It's so true.
All right, pass the plate. Pass the plate. Let the choir sing the benediction.
I love it. I love it. Anything about the midterms coming up? I know we're starting to get heavy into the season. So as we come up on that, anything there that we need to know this week?
I think the good news is that we are seeing fundraising on the Republican side exceed what we're seeing with the Democrats. Again, the challenge is, as one of my great uncles used to always say, the difference in Republicans and Democrats is we have to expose the lies they tell. We have to make sure people hear the truth we're telling. And I think that's the challenge that we face in the midterms. It costs money to do that. It means, if you can only contribute $25 or $30 or whatever it might be to a candidate. And as much as I like, the Republican Party, both at the state and the national level, give to candidates.
Yes.
The pass-through cost of the consultants and everything that your money goes to when you give to parties doesn't help candidates. Select your candidates carefully. Write those checks. Put up the yard sign. Go volunteer. Knock on doors. Wear T-shirts. Do the hard work that our founders did when they risked their lives. They risked everything they had, everything they possessed, because they were fighting the biggest, most powerful entity on earth in the British Army, and they risked it all because freedom mattered. We need to risk what little we have, whether it's $30, $50, putting up a yard sign and your liberal neighbor next door sneers at you when they walk past your house. We have to do that to reclaim our country, to protect the freedom for generations to come. So, give to candidates, vet them carefully. Don't get fooled by our guys the same way that we get fooled by the Democrats. Vet the candidates carefully and then go all in for them.
And one last thing on that before I let you go, vetting the candidate. When you were talking a minute ago, just the phrase that kept coming to my mind is look at what they do, not what they say. And God says in the Bible, you will know them by their fruit. What's the fruit in their life? So is there any a quick piece of advice you could give someone on how to vet a candidate, how to make sure that they're sowing into good ground?
First of all, look at their record. Look at what they've actually done, not what they say they've done. And there are a lot of candidates that embellish their record dramatically. Look them in the eye. I mean, I still believe that we can trust our own eyes, our own hearts. Go to these events, talk to them, ask them the tough questions, watch how they squirm. Do they give you talking point answers, or can you tell they're talking from the heart and are actually sharing their convictions rather than trying to avoid a conviction down the line like we see so often as well? So look them in the eye, look their record up, and then talk to your friends and neighbors who may have had, instances of dealing with them in the past, and don't just trust the money. Don't just trust the advertisements. Trust what you feel. Trust what you know. God gave us great instincts.
Yeah.
Use them.
Amen. Amen. Great advice. Thank you so much, Steve Gill. Ladies, go to tristardaily.com. Get all your news there. We can trust Steve Gill. And I sure appreciate you coming on today, Steve, and every week. Thanks for all that you do.
We'll see you next week. Have a great week, ladies.
All right, you too. All right, ladies, welcome back. It's tea time. Welcome to the cafe. I'm drinking vanilla chamomile today. I hope you'll pour yourself a nice hot cup of tea if you can, if you're not driving right now, and join me. Today, I want to expand a little bit on the news headlines we were just talking about with Steve about the Super Bowl halftime show. And I want us to look at it in context to this being Valentine's week. I want us to look at it from a very important angle today. Okay. We have two very, very different value systems going on in America. I would even venture to say we have a value system, and then we have a mass void of values in the other half of our country. And then I think we have some people in the middle that are just sort of oblivious. They just sort of don't really get it. They just sort of don't know. And when I saw the lyrics to that Bad Bunny song, like Steve and I were just discussing, I just couldn't really even read them anymore because they're just so disgusting. And the fact that he was singing it in Spanish, again, so many people oblivious, they don't know what he's saying. You could tell from the thrusting and the pumping and grinding going on with the dancers of what it probably was about. But that's the point, that we are so desensitized to that stuff anymore that it's just normal to us. This is one of our most celebrated institutions, the American Super Bowl, celebrating the most finely tuned athletes in the world competing on a national stage, the best of the best after a full season of just playing their hearts out. And now this is the best of the best coming together for that big, trophy. And at halftime, it was supposed to be a celebration of our American heritage, kind of a celebration of that American institution. And now it's just become something polar opposite of that. And so a lot of people, when they watched it, they were focused on the theatrics, focused on how well presented it was as far as the visuals and all that kind of stuff. You can get past the pumping and grinding, right? Some people just kind of shake their heads and go, "You Christians, you're just prudes. Just get over it. It's not that big of a deal. What's the big deal?" Right? So we have that camp. Then we have the TPUSA camp, the Turning Point show. Again, I'm not going to probably pay to go see money for a lot of those artists, but I can certainly appreciate the tone and the spirit in which that show was executed, especially toward the end when Kid Rock / Robert Ritchie did his song called Till You Can't, and talked about dusting off our Bibles and talking about revival back to Jesus, that we better get right with Jesus until we can't. That whole idea. And then the idea, that beautiful picture of Charlie Kirk with his family, the American institution of family, the nuclear family. So beautiful. That's what I watched. That's what I loved. I don't want to see pumping and grinding in my face anymore. Now, you can say, "Oh, Diane, you're just being a prude. Oh, Diane, you're just making too much out of this." Okay. Well, let me just challenge that for a second. Okay. We have so many women in our culture, and I was one of them for many years, that have no idea of their value. They have no idea how truly valuable they are. They find their value in their sexuality. They find it in their how they look. They find it in selfies on Instagram that they can doctor. They find it in, maybe some position that they hold. They find it in some relationship that they're in. If they're in a relationship with a celebrity or whatever, then they think they're valuable. Maybe they are the celebrity. There's a million worldly ways that we can quote unquote measure our value. But I'm telling you right now, from having been one of those people, that it is empty. At the end of the day, it is all empty and void of true fulfillment. When you're young and sexy and you're hot and all that, and, for a lot of years, I found my value in my sexuality and my ability to attract men. I had no idea what I was bringing on in my life. I had no idea the ways that promiscuity was eating away at my soul. And being in the music industry for a long time, and you're really sort of required to have that sex appeal and to have that ability to attract people. And I never went too far with it. There was always something inside of me that kind of guarded me and protected me from stepping over the line. But I certainly danced around in those areas. And I was very promiscuous when I was younger. I was searching so much for my value. I had no idea my value. I've said this many times on this show, but I think dads are charged with teaching their daughters their value. My dad split when I was 8 years old, so I had no idea what I was doing. And I see this in our culture running rampant. Our families it's pretty common for kids to be growing up in broken homes these days. Pretty common for dads to not really be a part of a daughter's life, or if they are a part of her life, then it's really sort of part-time, and or he's buying her something, he's paying for something she wants to do, that kind of thing. Now, there are some great dads. It's not a general statement. There are some exceptions out there. But what I see in on full display is women that are hungry, desperately hungry for value and purpose and self-worth. And I've worked with women my entire career. So I can tell you, of all walks of life, it doesn't matter if they are waitresses, all the way up to CEOs of companies, all the way up to owners of companies, all the way up to celebrity music artists, all the way up to celebrity politicians. I've worked with them all. And I can tell you the common denominator, I would say in 80% of the women that I have known, that's a common denominator. They have no idea their value, their self-worth, their self-respect, their dignity. And a lot of them try to find it in other things. Now, it may not always be in sexually, in a sexual way. They find it sometimes in getting power positions, or in, making a lot of money, or, there are other ways they try to find it too. But as a society, when we see the promiscuity, when we see something like Bad Bunny being seen as acceptable to celebrate one of our most famous institutions, the Super Bowl, there's a cultural problem there. Okay. And that's the enemy. The enemy never changes. Like, it's been going on like this since the dawn of man, since Sodom and Gomorrah, since before that, since Noah's days, before that. Like, this is what he always does. He uses the sexual stuff, because it's so powerful, right? It's an attack on creation. It's an attack on God's creation. Like, the ability to procreate, the ability to have intimacy with your husband or your wife, that is something that's so sacred to God. And the enemy is always the counterfeit, right? He always twists it and turns it to make it seem empowering if you are sexually promiscuous. I mean, I see this like with J-Lo and a lot of these people, own your power, girl, and get out there and you look good, shake it. You look good, flaunt it. Oh my gosh, y'all. Like, I've bought into that mentality, and I can tell you it's empty. Look at those people's lives. Look at J-Lo. Okay. And she's one of my favorite actresses. Like, I love rom-coms. I'm a hopeless romantic. Like, I love her in movies, right? But her life, it's a train wreck. And my life was a train wreck when I was buying into a lot of that mentality. Okay. Now let's look at the comparison. Let's look at the contrast. When we do it God's way, okay, look at Charlie Kirk and Erica Kirk. Look at the legacy that he left. We all want that kind of love, that solid love built on a strong foundation, godly principles. They have inspired millions and probably billions at this point of people. Their marriage has, even after his death. I saw Charlie on a recent podcast he was doing with these girls that are into, what is that? It's like a porn website for college girls or something. I forget the name of it. But it's a lot of these girls, they make money on the side by, going on video and doing, what. And what is the name of that? I'm trying to think. Anyway, he was sitting with a lot of these girls that participate in it. And he was asking them, he's like, if we could wave a magic wand right now and you had all the money that you needed, would you continue doing this work, or would you want a family? Would you want a husband and a family? And he went around the table and he asked each one, and each one said that they wanted a family. And then I'll tell you this too. If this isn't accurate, like what I'm saying, if this isn't really true based in biblical principles, if it's not how God designed us to be in relationship with one person and to have that intimacy in marriage and all that, then why are there so many songs about cheating? Like, like these women, and again, I'm no mudslinging, because I was in this mentality for a long, long time too. But if you're parading yourself and putting yourself out there as a very sexually active, hot, that's what you're soliciting. And a guy is attracted to that, and he comes into quote unquote relationship with you. then what in the world makes you think he's going to be faithful to you? He's going to be lured by the next girl doing that and the next girl doing that. So if you're okay with that, that's one thing. But don't get mad when he cheats. Don't write songs about, what a blank, blank, blank he is for cheating on you. Like, we're just not wired for this narrative that's being pumped out into the society and pumped and just shoved down our throats. It's all Satan's lies. And all the girls that think that it's okay to just have multiple partners and all of that stuff. Charlie asked one of them, there was one on there advocating for that. She's like, well, my husband and I, or my boyfriend and I, we have multiple partners and I'm okay with that and all that. And he asked her, he said, how is your relationship with your dad? And she just kind of stopped and it startled her for a minute. She said, pretty terrible. We don't talk. You can always, not always, again, I don't want to make a blanket statement, but you can usually trace it back to a girl not really knowing her worth. And I think dads are charged with teaching a daughter that. And so when she doesn't feel loved and valued and safe and protected from her dad, from her natural dad, then she's going to be searching for that out there. And she's going to be trial and error, bumping into walls and falling into all kinds of lies that the enemy is going to feed her into thinking that she's empowered or she's somehow immune to the pain of that if she can just be sexy enough. And here's the other thing. What happens when you start to age? What happens when you're not young and cute anymore? What happens when you start getting into your 40s, 50s? What do? You can't rely on those looks anymore. And I see a lot of women trying to hang on to them. A lot of women trying to maintain this. They spend thousands of dollars in surgery every year trying to maintain that youthful look because that's what they cling to. That's where their value is. And it's just so sad to me. It's so sad. It's so sad because I look back, I wish I could go back and tell the young adult me that that's not where the answer is. That's not where the fulfillment is. And I'll tell you, I have the contrast now. Here's why I can speak in authority on this, because I'm actually married now to a wonderful man who does love the Lord first and foremost, and in return then knows how to love me. And I have grown up in my faith. I have chosen God and chosen to put away all that childish stuff, all that stuff that leads to nowhere. And I've chosen to follow God. And now that I'm in a relationship with someone where God is the foundation, where there's depth in the relationship, oh my gosh, it's so much better. It's so much better. God's ways are better. Of course they're better. It's how he designed us. When you're with someone who settles down your nervous system, someone who makes you feel beautiful, because of who you are, not what you look like or what you have on or what sex acts you're doing in the bedroom with them. When that person feels like home to you, when you can literally feel your entire existence just settling down. You no longer have the gypsy spirit. You no longer have the restless wandering eye. You no longer wonder if the grass is greener on the other side. You're no longer feeling like the other shoe is going to drop any minute. You no longer feel like that they have some ulterior motive with everything they're doing. You're not checking their phone and checking their text messages to make sure they're not cheating on you. I mean, all that stuff. Oh my gosh, you guys, the trade-offs we make when we don't do it God's way. So, it's not about politics, what happened Sunday during the Super Bowl. It's not about politics. It's about the value system of America. It's about the it's about what we stand for as a nation, what we want our children and our grandchildren to inherit. It's about standing up for God's values. And it's not as simple as, well, if you don't like it, turn it off. No, it's we don't want to be complicit, even by omission, right? Like, we have to be vocal. Like, we have to take stands for what's wrong in our country and start to push this evil back. Because I'll tell you what, the spirit of lust and all of this that the enemy has just unleashed on our culture and our kids and our grandkids, it's so dangerous. It leads to destruction of a society. Look at Sodom and Gomorrah. Look at Babylon. there's only one brick wall that's ahead that they're going to hit. And this is why we, as people who love the Lord, who know better now, need to stand up and use our voice and say, no, this is not okay. By so many people switching over to the TPUSA program, it made a statement to the NFL that there are a lot of people in this country that just aren't standing for it anymore. We're not putting up with it anymore. We want our country back. We want our values back. So I don't know if it'll make a big enough impact this year. Maybe this has to happen a few years for it to catch on more and more. But this is how we make impact. This is how we start to turn our culture back to God. It's part of it. Okay. And coming up on Valentine's Day, I think first and foremost, we need to be very mindful of the fact that God loves us. He loves you so much. He created you. You are a masterpiece. And it's so hard for us to receive that. I know a lot of us, it's so hard for us to accept that. But I want you to start to get that on the inside of your spirit, that you were intricately woven together in your mother's womb. God chose that you were going to have blue eyes or brown eyes or green eyes, whatever it is you have. He chose that. He chose you were going to have dark hair or blonde hair or whatever. He chose every detail of you. And if we just look at things like our heart, the miracle of our heartbeat, that heart beats every day and keeps us alive and has no batteries, right? Our kidneys, if you just look at the filtering system that we have that keeps us healthy, if you look at every integral part of our bodies, it's like more incredible than the most incredible machine out there. That's why doctors call it practicing, because they still haven't figured out the human body. There's a lot they can do, but there's still a lot they don't know. This is the master physician, the master creator that created you, and he loves you and he wants the best for you. He's not trying to cramp your style by keeping you from something fun or making you feel like you're some outcast from society if you take a stand for him. Not at all. The most freedom I have found has been in obedience to him. And that's a very dichotomous statement, I know. The most freedom that I have felt in my soul, when I say freedom, I'm talking about peace. I'm talking about joy. I'm talking about the feeling like I don't have to strive for everything. That my life's not effortful anymore. That I have a settled nervous system, the freedom and the spaciousness that I feel in my heart and in my mind. I'm not plagued and haunted by thoughts that just torment me all the time anymore. Like, the most freedom has been in the center of God's will for my life and me being obedient to him. And so I encourage you to do the same. Let him love you. Start to really grasp how loved you are. And these girls that are lost out here, that are following that lie of the enemy of, the promiscuity, the, sex sells, all that stuff. Those girls, they're lost. They are just so lost. And what we need to do is win them to God, start to help them understand how valuable they truly are to him. He created them. He loves them, and he has a purpose for them. And all this, that they're chasing, that they think is going to bring them fulfillment, it's not. It's going to come up empty. And so let's slowly start to win them. If you know somebody like this in your life, don't judge. Don't come in, fingers pointing and make her feel ashamed of herself and all that. And that's not how we win them. It's start to, first of all, receive God's love for yourself and let it start showing up in your life, the evidence and the fruit in your life. That's going to attract her. She's going to want some of that. And then you start to pour out on her how you're feeling it, how you're growing in that, and create that thirst in her to want it too, and win them. You've got to win them to God. And let's clean our society up, because I'll tell you what, it's enough, y'all. It's enough. We are standing for God. We are pushing this evil back. We are not going to be complicit with it. We are not just going to shrug it off. This is how the enemy gets footholds. This is how he starts kicking in doors and taking territory. No, we're going to stand here. We're going to say, no, we are pushing you back. You will not get any more territory with our young girls, with our daughters, our granddaughters. No, this is it. We're forming a company front, a Christian line. We're pushing it back. And that's what we have to be about. In these last days, I say all the time, we're in the last hours of the last days. And our society, our culture is lost. Rightfully so. I mean, we've dropped the ball a lot. in taking that stand for God. We've dropped it. We as Christians, this is on us. This is on our watch. Okay. But it doesn't mean we can't start now and start turning that tide, start turning that ship around. Because with God, we can do that. All right. So don't allow it. Don't just shrug off this Super Bowl thing. No. Take your territory back. Start winning people to Christ. Last hours of the last days. Let's try and take as many as we possibly can with us to heaven. All right. All right, ladies, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope this has been a blessing to you today. I hope you're walking away with maybe some fresh ideas on how to approach the really tough cultural conversations, especially around this Super Bowl thing. Again, let me know in the comments what's on your heart. How can I pray for you? And what maybe some wisdom that you could offer to the ladies that are watching. No matter what platform you're watching on, if you're here on YouTube, if you're here on one of the podcast channels, whatever, there's places to make comments. And I really would love to hear from you. And we can all glean from each other's wisdom in this. All right. So I hope you have a beautiful rest of your week. I hope you enjoy Valentine's Day, no matter what status you're in relationship. I hope you'll lean into God. Let him just saturate you with his love. Learn how to receive that and then pour that out on anybody that you encounter. You know, Valentine's Day, yes, it's kind of for couples, but we can show love to anybody that's in our sphere of influence and start to love them in a healthy, godly way and then attract them. And I pray that if you are still waiting on God to send you that right person, I hope that he does that. And I hope that you will wait because it's worth waiting. Don't sell yourself short. Don't go down the paths that lead to just disappointment. Just wait on God. It's well worth it and let him love you. Okay. I'll see you back here next week. Lady up. Mwah.
Taking back this house, taking back this town. Mama, don't back down. Just a lady up.